Welcome to the show. Hi, I'm Randy Jeffers, and we are live from the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. Well, we have a really great show. We have with us none other than Larry Sommers. Larry, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Great to have you here, and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, how'd you get to Las Vegas?
That's a long story. Grew up on a poultry farm in Northeast Ohio.
Ohio, wow.
Yeah. We were pretty big time into it, I guess, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
So I grew up feeding chickens and milking cows.
Wow.
So it was quite experience. My family also owned a supermarket. So I was carrying out groceries and about everything you can think of. They didn't have to look very far to find work.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Yeah. And I had a very large extended family, so I have 44 first cousins on my dad's side. 36 of us grew up within 2 miles of each other, mostly on farms, so it was pretty wild, fun, great way to grow up and receive the work ethic for sure.
So now the school that you went to, was it in a fairly good sized town, or was it a small town?
There was probably around 5,000 people.
They're fairly small.
That's it, yeah.
So you had all your cousins in school with you?
Oh yeah.
You knew everybody.
That we did.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah.
What a way to grow up. That's something that most kids nowadays will never have a chance to know.
It's a bygone era for sure.
Yeah, but it must have shaped your life.
Totally.
Yeah. So what happened after you left Ohio?
Well, there was quite a bit that went on while I was in Ohio. When I was 26, I built an 18,000 square foot supermarket and had a big wholesale business. And eventually...
When you're 26, you did this?
I did, at 26.
Of course, you'd had the experience of your parents with...
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah, I was driving tractor when I was 7. I mean, those kind of things. You just learn early. And so there was a moment when, we either had to become a chain supermarket, or it just became very difficult to exist even though our warehouse, Associated Grocers, was a co-op. So we sold out at the time, and I had an opportunity actually in Phoenix, Arizona. So my brother and I bought a couple businesses there, and so that's what got me out west.
That's a big switch, going to Arizona from Ohio. Yeah, you don't have to shovel snow in Arizona.
If you go to Flagstaff, you do.
Yeah, I guess that's right. But probably you weren't in Flagstaff. Were you in Flagstaff? Is that where you were?
No, we were in Phoenix. Yeah. But it's 2 hours away. You could go up and enjoy the snow and then leave it.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been sort of an entrepreneur all your life, right? You've been in the business, and you've had some pretty amazing success in business. Tell us a little bit about some of the companies that you've had.
2 of the companies were actually in the weight loss industry. Were the Inc. magazine top 100 growth companies listed at the time. They were in the 500 list, but actually they were in the top 100. So I was director of administration for Physicians Weight Loss, and it was great learning because we had 500 locations and so forth. So I got very accustomed to operating companies that have a lot of satellite locations.
Yeah. Very interesting. So you mentioned there were a couple of companies. What were some of the others?
Well, the other one was Formula 3 Weight Loss. They were smaller. I started there and then worked my way up and went to Physicians later. So.
Wow. So out of all the businesses that you've been involved in and owned and run, what's your favorite?
Well, I took certainly a lot of pride in the supermarket because we started from scratch, and you had to build up a whole network of regular customers and that kind of thing. So I took a lot of pride in that. I probably, my favorite was when I was doing had investment company with a partner, and we were doing. At the time, there was a lot of tax benefits, tax credits that you could have. So we were taking advantage of the fact that we could buy. One of the things we were doing is buying tractor trailers that were being retired by companies. We would put in new drivetrains and repaint them, and
Wow.
could turn out a vehicle like new for about half the money. So and at the time, we had investment tax credits, and so there's a lot of benefits for that people would want to take advantage of that before they changed all the tax laws in the later 80s.
You've seen a lot of that probably, right?
I have.
Yeah. So you're not only an entrepreneur, you ran businesses, you're also a finance guy, so you've dealt with a lot of finances. I understand you were in the foundation creating business at one time. Tell us about that one.
Well, that kind of led from when we were doing the investment work. One of the things we realized is that people were a lot of times leaving themselves wide open to problems or where they were subject to individuals or people suing them for different reasons. So the liability was a huge issue with a lot of business people. So one thing led to another, and we started working with foundations. I created those by doing 501c3 filings with the IRS and so forth, and so became quite knowledgeable in the formation of foundations, as well as how trusts work and the various other vehicles that business people can use to keep their tax burden as low as possible and still return a good profit on their investment.
And so, is that still something that that entrepreneurs should look at?
Oh yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, trusts are very valuable. There's all kinds of trusts. There's land trusts, there's family trusts, and so forth. They're good vehicles because they do protect the trustee. The trustees basically make decisions for beneficiaries. So it's a good working relationship. It's a great way to hold property, for instance, to hold it in trust, and you can do it with limited liability companies as well. But I've always preferred the trust angle. Just seems a little bit more solid. And then creating foundations. A lot of people really that are making good money really have the heart to give and do certain things, want to give back. And so we did a lot of creation of foundations, filing the 1023 return with IRS to get 501c3 status.
So, for those of us who may not have your expertise in the financial world, you're really talking about like nonprofits. That's that type of a thing,
each
right?
state, almost every state offers. You can file for a nonprofit corporation, as well as a regular C corporation, which is a for-profit.
Yeah, well, that's fascinating. Fascinating. Now, do you have to have a certain amount of money in order to do that, or is it something that pretty much anybody could do?
Anybody can do it, but it's maybe not as necessary. Usually, if you have a legitimate 501c3 foundation approved by IRS under 501c3, it enables you to have quite a bit of tax savings because it gives you a great vehicle to donate money that would ordinarily be profits and be able to get a deduction, so that the money you put into the foundation, then people get a lot of satisfaction of just being able to do that.
Oh, very good. So, That's sort of your business life,
Right.
You're kind of in a all the way from the beginning up until kind of now. Now you're in Las Vegas.
Right.
You kind of live between Las Vegas and Arizona, right?
Yes.
And so what brought you to Las Vegas for the first time?
Well, I actually went through a divorce, and I was at the time working with a couple individuals that had offices here. So rather than work satellite, I decided to just go ahead and come up to Las Vegas, and that's what got me here originally. And
Yeah.
so Las Vegas kind of also a home away from home, and my children all and their kids all live in the Phoenix area or in Arizona, and
Mhm.
so it's still kind of home to me, but I'm certainly comfortable in Vegas because I spent so much time here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So with all that vast experience that you have, when you look back and you say, man, that guy taught me so much, who were your mentors? Who were your teachers?
Well, I think I'm very fortunate to have a grandfather and father that were probably my biggest mentor. My maternal grandfather was 6'2". He was larger than life in the day when people were only 5 foot.
Oh.
and he taught in a one-room schoolhouse. He was just such a brilliant person. We come from a Christian background. He had memorized, I think, 2/3 of the entire Bible.
Wow.
He was just this fantastic person, bigger than life.
Mhm.
And of course, then my working around my father for years, we processed sides of beef and did all that. So we also did a lot of with beef and cattle and that kind of thing. So spent most kids when they come home from school or whatever, their dad's at work. My dad was always home because we had the farm. So
And always at work.
He was always at work, right?
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
So it was just really a blessing. Now that I'm older, I think back how great of a blessing that really was. So he clearly was my hero in life.
Wow. What great memories you must have, huh?
Yep.
And how about your
Well-
grandfather on your dad's side?
He died early at the age of 49.
Oh my goodness.
So I never, from the flu,
Uh-huh.
so I never really had a chance to meet him. He died well before, probably about 10 years before I was born. So, but he also was a larger than life figure. My dad had, I think, there was 11 brothers and sisters. So,
Wow.
so he was the patriarch of the family. So what's kind of interesting is he had one brother and then a bunch of sisters. So this one brother, who we all affectionately called Uncle Johnny, became the patriarch of all of us. He was kind of the guy, and he lived to over 100 years old.
Wow.
Great stories.
Absolutely. So now, outside of your family, though, and who sort of mentored you in the business world?
That's a good question, because most of my family were in business, and I know it sounds kind of funny, but I have 4 uncles that were contractors. So I grew up building houses and those kind of things. So I still think it's probably people in my family,
Yeah.
because they were so steeped in business. I don't think with 11, 12 uncles, I had one that worked for somebody else. Everybody else was entrepreneurial, either
Wow.
on farms and building houses. I mean, they just did it all. So you grow up in that whole environment, and it just it's how you got mentored. So I probably became a mentor quicker to other people than I had other people was starting to mentor me.
So let's talk about some of the people that you've mentored. What kind of successes have you seen that you've sort of passed down that probably wouldn't have happened if you hadn't been in their life?
There's quite a few that in the next generation that I've been able to work with. And so I've been president of a couple companies that really worked with people to get them organized into business. I found that when I was doing my corporate structuring with setting up trusts and foundations and so forth for business people, that I really became their mentor. Even it's more than me just creating something. That most of the people, because I had this wealth of background, and just kind of worked with my accounting degree and being trained in accounting. It was a good combination. And I've always advised young people, if you don't know what you want to do, go get an accounting degree, because you will use it the rest of your life.
Yes, absolutely.
And so kind of through that business, that I've been doing for years, hundreds of people that were clients originally, but became friends and mentored, the whole thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned you had some children in Arizona.
Right.
So tell us about your kids.
Well, I have two sons that in the Phoenix area. They each have two boys among them. My one son owns a transportation company, does really well, and my other son is a respiratory. Does respiratory.
He's a therapist.
Therapist in a hospital. Wow. And my daughter lives in Tucson, and she has 4 children, and she's a registered nurse.
Oh, very good.
And her husband has a business too, and they do continuous spouting, on houses and all that. So they have a really good. They have 2 or 3 crews out. So they have 5 acres down there, and they have a few chickens and a couple goats and.
Following the family tradition,
right? A little bit.
Yeah. So, but 2 of them got into the medical field. That's interesting.
Yeah. And my daughter actually has 2 children that were autistic, and so she learned to cook everything from scratch and naturally. That's how they ended up with goats, so they could use the milk of the goats. Those kids turned out about as normal as you could be.
Wow,
really
great.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's so important what you put in your mouth, right? It's the food you
really
eat.
Is.
Yeah,
it really is.
So, what do you think makes you such a special guy? I know a number of people that know you that just really think you're just really special. When you look at yourself, what do you think makes you really special?
Well, I think, first of all, and we talk about mentors. One of my mentors, Dr. Margaret Paul, who's been a longtime friend of mine. She's written 10 books on the subject of healing the inner you. She's a psychologist. And you really feel like that. I don't know. I just have had a lot of confidence that way, and so go ahead. Ask me the question over again.
Well, I'm just curious because you're so well liked amongst all the people I know. When you look at yourself.
One of the things she teaches is about loving yourself, your inner child, that kind of thing.
Right.
And she does 5-day intensive sessions, and so I've always had that. I've always had a lot of self-confidence, and that's clearly because of my upbringing. So I can be alone but never feel lonely, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those kind of issues are what, and I love, when you really love yourself, you can show outward love to other people easily. But you first have to have that inside yourself. And so because I naturally just love whoever I'm talking to, and I find myself smiling, and I like a good joke, and I like life to be light and easy, and I think people appreciate that.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that you were born with? You think it's something that was created?
I think it's a combination.
Yeah.
I was an extremely shy kid. I played 4 sports growing up, and I think that helped pull me out because I didn't just play them. I was actually pretty good at it. I was all league in high school in football and basketball, and my summer baseball team went to the state finals, and so I think that helped pull me out of it, the shyness part. And so, because even though I was kind of shy, I was very well accepted.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I've not experienced a time in my life where I haven't felt accepted. So, and I think that comes from internal. You know, even though I wasn't an external type person, now I'm probably equal external and internal. You know, as the years went by. But so I think that's what makes the difference, and that's why I have a heart for seeing younger kids get some mentoring, because so many are from divorce homes today, and they don't have a father figure to look up to always, or that's with them, and so that's my heart to see that some of that gets handled.
Well, I noticed you talked fondly about your family, and especially your father and your grandfather, and the people that surrounded you, your uncles and so forth. And obviously you've carried that on now a couple generations deeper. And
right.
What's it like to sort of look at you have grandchildren?
Right.
Any great-grandchildren?
No.
Not yet. Okay. So, but when you look at your grandchildren and you see what they're becoming, and some of that has to do with you, right? And some of it has to do with your father and your grandfather.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. How do you feel about that?
Oh, it's a sense of pride, because I think all of my children have done a great job with their children.
Yeah.
And it passes on down. I've always taught them to be think for themselves. Don't come asking me. You can figure your way out of this jam yourself, and they do. They are well positioned like that. All the kids I have some now going through high school, but the ones that are already through graduate, I have one granddaughter that's actually graduated from college and has a nursing degree. So they're doing really well. They seem to be with self-confidence and all that kind of thing. So I'm a big advocate of mentoring whoever you have to mentor to bring the younger generation out of feeling conscious. They need to have self-conscious so that they can get through life.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I know that there's probably some younger people watching us right now, and what advice do you have? Because it's always, for me, it's very interesting always to talk to somebody that's successful, that's well-grounded, that has the roots, I guess, that you have, and with all that great mentoring that happened in your family.
Right.
A lot of people don't have that.
That's
Especially
true.
A lot of kids they have no idea what that's like. So for just kids in general, what advice do you have for them?
Well, that's a loaded one. That's a seminar, but in a nutshell, people have to learn that God created them exactly how they're supposed to be, and they don't need to go outside of themselves to find anything. A lot of young ones go outside of themselves to find love or sex or whatever, and they have everything they need internally right now. So learn to be good with that and understand that you do, and then start doing whatever you can for other people, because if you don't do things for others, then you'll never be able to do anything for yourself, because providing others with friendship or just a word of kindness, it doesn't take much to tell somebody a single word of kindness,
Yeah.
So anybody can do that. So if you feel that you can't do that, force yourself to do that, and so by doing that, you'll see, oh my gosh, I feel better. So you actually end up getting the benefit as much or more than the person that you're addressing.
So, in other words, the war is between this ear and this ear, somewhere in there.
Pretty
right?
well.
Yeah.
And this one, in the heart.
And this one. Well, I noticed you talked about kindness, and I think probably anyone that knows you knows that you're a kind person, and you're so right. It just doesn't take much just to have a smile with somebody, and you never know. Right?
Everybody can smile.
Yeah.
People say, well, I can't go down the street and smile. Well, try it. You'd be surprised how many smiles you get back.
Yeah.
And you can't do it do it so it's natural, when you look at people. And the other thing is, when you address people, always look in their eyes. Don't look away. Don't look down. People sense that you care or you're interested in what somebody's saying. And God gave you one mouth and two ears, so use them accordingly.
That's right. That's very good. Exactly right. So, if you were to analyze your life, what would you say is the most exciting thing that you've ever participated in?
Oh my goodness. Well, you always there's an old saying that somebody said, nobody on their deathbed wishes that they had spent more time at the office. So things that you contribute to other people's lives, there's just so many that I don't know if I can even put my finger on one thing. But when you've been around somebody, off and on, and you see them grow up, and you've had a little input or a part in them being the person they are, it just feels so good. And so if you want to make yourself feel better, just keep doing more for others. Contribute. Go to a feeding place so you can help feed the homeless. Do something that provides you the chance to give of yourself, because then that's the way you heal your own self and body.
Yeah, there's that old saying, if you want to have a friend, go be a friend, right?
Right.
I think so many people, especially in this day and age, they get stuck in this way of thinking that, woe is me, and, there's no hope. And a lot of people just give up. They really don't
Right.
have hope. And what a sad state that is, because the answers kind of, are pretty simple, right? They're all within.
Yeah. Yeah, it still goes back to, the three things that Jesus talked about is faith, hope, and love. So if you just do those three, you're going to be a happy person and content with life.
Absolutely. So what's the secret of life?
Secret is...
we could write a book about this and make a few $1 million.
That's right. This is a big subject here.
Yeah.
That could go on and on. But in a nutshell, I think the secret is to just be a loving, caring person, and don't get worked up about the little things. I mean, how many couples break up because of little things, and because it keeps gnawing at you. And,
Yeah.
You have to put that back, and then the big one is forgiveness. So you have to operate in a climate of total forgiveness. A lot of people have had bad experiences in their childhood with, incest and all those kind of things. You have to come to a point that you can forgive, because it only affects you.
Yeah.
And so I think that in a combination, keeping a smile on your face and have a forgiving spirit are the two things that will, to me, that's what I would say would be the secret.
And sometimes when you're talking about forgiveness, you can forgive a person, but not
You don't
necessarily
forgive the deed.
action.
That's
Yeah.
right. You don't ever forgive the deed.
Right.
What you do is forgive the person, because everybody's created by God. We're all human, and so there's no point in carrying that. And we've through some of the people we've worked with, we've seen people totally make a absolute turnaround change in their life.
Wow. So anything's possible. Always.
It is.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I put out a CD series with another friend of mine, or a single CD called Finding Your Genius and Living Your Passion. So I believe that in life, everybody is a genius in something. So if you don't know what it is, find out what it is, what you're really good at, that with a little work and training, you could be the best in the world at doing that one thing. And then work in things that you have a passion. If you can't do it with your 8 to 5 job, at least do something in your off time that you feel very much passionate. If you're passionate about the environment, then get involved. If you're, whatever it is.
So let's talk about that. That is a fabulous story. I love that title. Find your genius and live your passion.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's say we have somebody out there that's watching us right now,
Right.
and they're maybe stuck in a dead-end job. They've kind of settled. They've lost the dreams that they had when they were younger, and they've sort of settled in.
Right.
That maybe it doesn't get better than this, and I've got more bills than I can pay every month, and I've got to keep working. Where do you start? What's step number one?
I think that is go to some kind of mentoring type thing. That if you look at the various, there's all kinds of seminars going on. So if you read all the things that are going on in the seminar, what really hits your heart that, oh man, I'd love to go to that. So where's your real passion lying? What is it you'd really like to do? Forget earning a living for a minute. That's a whole nother subject. So if you didn't have to worry about making money, what would you like to do? So it starts with really just, where's your heart? What do you like? Some people like to do, that's what makes the world great, because we all like different things. And so, but where do you, and then usually your genius and your passion are pretty closely connected. Because if you love doing something, then it's never work. It's never, it's fun. It's
Right.
I loved when I was growing up playing baseball in the summer. I loved it. It was fun.
Nobody had to tell you to go do it.
No,
Right? Yeah.
getting the glove and going out in the ball field, and it was the best. So you have to find out what really motivates you.
So number one would be sort of getting in tune with yourself, finding out about yourself, what it is that,
Right.
that you really are passionate about, right? And then what
Right.
would follow after that?
Then educate yourself, read everything you can on the subject,
Oh, very good.
and get books, get favorite authors, whatever, or people that are working in the field, and learn as much as you can. See what the possibilities are about, if I do this, how will I make a living? And so you have to address all that, because we're realists too. We know we have to have X amount of funds coming in to handle our basic needs, our
Right.
core needs.
Mm-hmm.
So find out if that's possible, what you need to do, and then the main thing is get with mentoring people in that field that can advise you on how to navigate doing your passion and still making a living, and then keep educating yourself. And if you just take the mindset that you are a genius, first of all, people really shun that, because unless they score really high on their SATs or whatever, they don't think they are, but you are, in different things. So
Mindset's so important, isn't it?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's say we get to that point. We've sort of figured out what our passion is, but we still got bills. You know, every month
Yeah.
the bill collector comes along and wants to collect some money from us, right? How do we get into that passion that we want to do? How do we sort of cut the strings, you know, to get away from doing the thing that takes up all of our time that we don't want to do, to go into something that we really do want to do?
Well, there's a lot of ways. That's why I say it depends on the field. If it's there's a lot of foundations that do work possibly in your field that you could maybe hook on, because foundations raise money and they pay salaries for people out there doing the work. And or providing a place to live or a car to drive or whatever. So just find out what all the possibilities in that field would be, who's in it, get around those people, because as a group you start figuring out more things that you can and cannot do. So that's what I would recommend, just because then you have you know, there's the old saying, always find your pack and run with it.
Right.
So you want to find out who, you know, who thinks like you and who likes same thing, and so great friendships develop out of those things too. And then as a collective, you know, you're trading ideas on making a living while you do it.
Absolutely. Well, you know, it's just great to pick your brain, being an entrepreneur like you have with such a thread of success. Let me just ask you this, which sort of goes back to our example of the guy cutting his strings, because you obviously have interviewed a lot of people, hired a lot of people. You
Right.
probably had human resources departments that did some of that. But
I've probably had 5,000 employees over the years.
so you kind of know your way around.
Yeah.
For those that are thinking about maybe cutting those ties that bind them to something that's
Right.
not that desirable, walk us through, what do you say to a potential employer or just somebody? I mean, let's say you found something that you really want to do and you want to go talk to them. First of all, it's scary for a lot of people, right? But what really impresses an employer?
Well, here again, I think that you can go back a few years. It was more cut and dried, like this is what you do, this is what we are. My ex-father-in-law worked 40 years at the same company and retired, got his gold watch, you know, at the Tippecanoe Roller Bearing Company in Ohio. And so nowadays, it's kind of shifted. I think, you know, myself as an employer off and on, I look for people with the right heart that will also treat the role as how do I want to say that? They want to treat the role that it's not even work. They're happy the clock flies, you know, the day flies by, and all of a sudden, oh my gosh, it's time to go home already. So, you know, I look for people that are into that, you know, have that heart for whatever it is they're going to be doing.
And how do you know that as an employer? What would the prospect tell the employer to sort of get that across?
Well,
you must have had some spectacular people that applied for something and it just impressed you, and you knew you had to have them, right?
Yeah. You know, I'm maybe not the best example because I can always tell, but for most people, I would say you know, if you're meeting with the employer, on the employer side, they need to have different, there's different lines of questioning and work. First of all, I like to see people with a solid work ethic. It's a little bit harder to find today, but I think you know, that's why I'm so big on people working in something they're passionate about, because I think in the old days, you know, you kind of had stoic bosses that would rule the roost and push people around and tell them what to do. And nowadays, you know, people are not put together that way. And so you need to have a little more, I just want to hear people talk, and you can tell if they start elevating their voice and get excited about what they're talking about.
Mhm.
But get them talking about various things in their personal life. And tell me about your family upbringing. You can tell where the hurt is, where the happiness is, and you know, like that.
Well, just like that. All right, well, it all sounds good until you're the guy that has to do it, right?
I know, that's right.
And it's a little different.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think sometimes it's good to sort of surprise people with some sort of shock them and ask them something way out in left field they weren't prepared for, just to see how they handle it, right?
Right.
That's always kind of fun.
Yeah, just
Yeah.
get them talking on something they have no knowledge of or whatever, and get some opinions, and you can kind of see how people maneuver around themselves and so forth. So, and I think today, the whole HR experience is different,
Mm-hmm.
and so you need HR people that are really sensitive people to people's needs.
Yeah.
How am I going to help this needs? I even refer to it sometimes developing covenant relationships.
Oh,
So that people feel that, okay, you're part of us, you're part of our group. They feel the love going out from that.
Yeah.
And that's what people want to feel.
Everybody wants to belong.
Yeah. It's
Abs-
very important to belong.
Absolutely. Well, we're almost out of time, but let me ask you, I want to ask you one tough question.
Oh, yeah. I love
So-
the tough ones.
If you were me, and you were interviewing you,
Hmm.
and you wanted to ask something that nobody's ever asked you before, what would that be?
Oh my goodness. Nobody ever asked before. You got me stumped on that one. I think that comes with the years of doing it.
Well, let me rephrase that.
Give
then.
me a.
What have you never told anybody that you would like to say?
Oh my. I end up counseling so many people on the phone and helping them through things. So I've said about everything you can say, but I would just go back to my standard lines, really. I don't think it's anything that I've not said, but just, for one thing, nothing's permanent, everything's temporary.
Yeah.
And the one thing we're guaranteed that things are going to change, and so we have to adapt to changes. So I think there again, it's back to having a good core group around you to kind of take care of the waves of life as they come, and because life is ups and downs. I always say happiness and sadness are opposites, and you experience both a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But joy it has no opposite. Joy comes
that's
from the
interesting.
internal heart. You can experience the death of a loved one and still feel joy in your spirit.
Yeah. Well, that's fabulous advice. Well, Larry, it's just been so great visiting with you and getting to know you a little more at a little bit deeper level. And
Sure.
And thanks for sharing. And maybe there's somebody out there that'll take some of that advice, and who knows, maybe
Good.
they'll find their passion and their life will forever be different because
I hope so.
they heard you, right?
That
So
would be
thanks
great.
again for being with us,
Thank you.
and we'll see you next week, same time, same station. Bye-bye, everybody.